How's it possible that in a country where you're not supposed to gamble until you're 21, I was addicted to it at 18 years old? Well, there's actually 5 factors that played into this, and in this video, I'm gonna dive into each of them and how they can affect you if you're not careful. Now, even if you're not 18 years old and you're watching this, these factors can still play an important role in your life in a negative way. My name's Rob, and I'm in recovery for a gambling addiction. I made my last bet on November the 12th of 2022, and now I make these videos to share my experience in hopes that you don't have to go down the same path with your life that I did with mine. So the very first thing that got me hooked when I was 18 was this false belief that the more I knew about sports, the more money I could make gambling on them. Growing up in the Philly area, we always gathered around sports. We would hang out on weeknights starting at 7 because that's when the Phillies started. Family events would be on Sundays at 1 p.m. because that's when the Eagles kicked off. It was like this my entire life, and it was normal. Nothing was weird about it. But then when I was 18 years old and I found out that there were apps where I could use my knowledge of these sports that I'd been watching my whole life to profit and make money, it was a no-brainer that I was gonna start. So I actually started with daily fantasy sports contests when I was 18 years old because those are technically classed as sweepstakes. You do not have to be 21 to use those in the United States, just 18. We're seeing apps like Prize Picks and Fliff doing the exact same workaround. But in essence, all it really was gambling. And the truth was that it doesn't matter how much you know about sports, they're so unpredictable and random, just like in the stock market, right? Past performance never implies future results. But we delude ourselves into thinking it does. So with all this knowledge of sports that I had garnered from watching them my entire life, I thought I was gonna get rich, that I was just gonna be able to get better playing sports bets. And that's just not true. So very early on, I was already emotionally overinvested and financially overinvested in my gambling. And that went on for the next 6 years. But essentially, I got hooked to it right away. And within the first couple of, contests, or I'll call them bets, I had reached the point where I was stressing out over every single play. I was using multiple screens, trying to watch every game that I had a player active in, and I was just hooked. And I loved it. It was exhilarating, it was thrilling, and it made me feel as if I was a part of the game. But it was all just a big lie. I had no influence on what would happen next. I was stressed out waiting for these millionaires that get paid to play a kid's sport to score baskets or, whatever, get rebounds. And I was just constantly on edge. It very quickly, within just a couple of weeks, went from something that was exhilarating to something that was producing anxiety as I was letting it go too far. Putting too much money into it, too much time into it, the whole lot. But the second factor that played a really key role in it becoming a problem for me was that it was seen as normal. It was basically like, if I didn't do this, I would be the only person seemingly around me that wasn't doing it. And that's not really fair to say that everyone gambles, but it was definitely a reflection of the group that I was hanging out with. And nowadays, a lot of people place bets, especially young men, on sports. And we see this normalization happening through a couple of different ways. We see people watching their favorite celebrities online, people watching TV commercials where they see people constantly winning, living lavish lifestyles and feeling great because they went out and gambled. We are seeing gambling everywhere. And the more we see it, the more normal it becomes, the more likely it becomes that we use it when we become of age or even beforehand. And so when I started seeing these commercials for FanDuel Fantasy Sports, DraftKings Fantasy Sports, I was instantly hooked. I wanted to be a part of it. And once you get onto that app, you're one click away from being on the regular sports book. That's the real danger of it, So the platforms that you use, the daily fantasy sports, very much resemble the regular sports books, and it's just one click to go from one to the other. So as soon as I was possibly able to, I went over and started making regular sports bets. But even before that, I was using websites like Bovada to place regular sports bets as well. I was basically gambling on traditional sports betting, fantasy sports, and casino games by the time that I was 19 years old. But I was hooked to it when I was 18. The third reason that I got hooked at such a young age is because the younger you start gambling, the more likely it is that you develop a gambling addiction. Now, this has to do with the development of the brain and whatnot, and that's not really my area of expertise. But this statistic should be alarming. Someone who is under the legal age to start gambling that begins to gamble will develop a gambling addiction between 2 and 7% of the time. Now that's a pretty wide range, but if we take the midpoint, somewhere around 4 to 5%. Whereas comparing it, less than 1% of people supposedly develop a gambling addiction when they start of age. So it is a significantly higher rate that you will develop a problem if you start younger. And that's why all the casino commercials and every offer is tailored to the youngest audience they can possibly get away with advertising to. Did you know that upwards of 86% of casino profits from online gambling come from 4% of the players, the gambling addicts? That's why casinos actually thrive on gambling addiction. It's part of their business model. They want to get people hooked at a young age and keep them coming back for more under the impression that they can win it all back, that they have a genuine chance of beating the system. And you just do not. Now, the fourth reason that I got hooked at such a young age, and this is actually one of the strongest reasons I think, was because of the velocity of wins and losses. When you're 18 years old, the kinds of jobs that you have access to work are not great. They're typically lower paying minimum wage type jobs, and I had a lot of them. I was a host at an Applebee's. I drove delivery for a pizza place, a Chinese place, and another pizza place. I worked at an ice cream parlor. I was working jobs where it would take the entire day to earn, say, $100. And then you compare it to the fact that you could win $100 watching the Eagles play or the Phillies play, and you're enjoying your time while you're making money. It seemed like a foolproof concept, right? You're doing what you love and you're making money doing it. That's everyone's dream. And you could do it so much faster or more efficiently than working a job. The only thing I didn't consider is that, hey, you could actually lose that money, and you're supposed to lose that money in the end. But when you're so used to it taking so much hard work to get that kind of earning, and you're able to do it in the blink of an eye, doing something that you love, it's a really enticing offer. And speaking of offers, that is the fifth reason that I got hooked at such a young age, because every sportsbook and casino offers some type of deposit match or sign-up bonus. And at a young age, again, when you don't have a lot of money, the idea that you could get a 100% match on your deposit is very alluring as well. You know, you've just already doubled the amount of money that you had access to. And of course, there's all types of rules and stipulations about how you have to use it, when you can cash it out, and what you need to do with it. But to someone with just a few dollars, it's very tempting. I've heard gambling being referred to as a tax on the poor. But even if you're not necessarily poor in terms of your family's wealth, if you're a young person and you haven't yet started to earn money, or just earning a very small amount of money, it can feel like this is a great avenue to try to speed things up. It's a trap. Not everyone that gambles will get a gambling addiction, but anyone can. And if you're gambling for a reason outside of general entertainment, like I was, that's when a problem will start to develop. There's actually 20 questions that you can ask yourself to determine if you have a gambling addiction. I answered yes to 19 out of 20 of them. I have a video right here about the 20 questions. Go and answer them and see if you have an issue. Thank you for watching. Let's keep getting better together, one day at a time.